So for you guys that don't know, this is the Panasonic G9, and this is the camera that I use for like most of my photography work. So if you follow me on Instagram, then the majority of the photos I run there are probably taken with this camera. And this camera is good for a lot of reasons, and today I'm just going to give you 10 of those reasons why I think this might be the camera for you to get. Reason number one is form factor. Panasonic G9 isn't the smallest camera, but it's also not the biggest. For DSLR equivalents, you're gonna find that those cameras are like a lot bigger than this camera is. This camera's main competitors are probably like the Sony a6000 series, and those cameras are small and compact. So if you wanted to do like street photography or be a bit more inconspicuous, then those cameras are good. But in terms of handling, they're not as good as this camera. As you can see, this camera has like a pretty big grip and it fits well in the hand. So if you want a camera that has great handling, then this is the camera for you. Next reason is the recent upgrade that the Panasonic G9 got, which is the 10-bit video. So if you are into videography work, if you're looking to kind of improve your cinematography work, then the Panasonic G9 actually may be a good camera for you, because now it has 10-bit. And what this means is that it's basically gives you a bit more leniency and a bit more information to work with when you're color grading. If you didn't know what that was, then you probably don't need it. But now that you do know what it is, maybe you feel like, that might be something you're interested in. So the Panasonic G9 has that, and it's something that you really only find with like video-centric cameras. And for this being like primarily a photography tool, for it to have that feature is pretty sick. Next reason is the lens selection. Depending on what system you're using, Panasonic G9 is Mark 4 thirds, as you probably know, and the lens selection for Mark 4 thirds is pretty good, because you have Panasonic lenses that can work with it, and you also have Olympus lenses that can also work with the camera, and also Sigma have their own line of like Mark 4 thirds lenses that you can use. And when you're comparing it to like DSLR equivalents, so for example, this is the 12 to 35 on this camera right now, and the DSLR equivalent would be a 24 to 70. And if you look at how big those lenses are compared to this one, then there's no competition. They're lightweight. They're also relatively cheaper as well. So if you do want to save a bit of money and have a smaller package, then Mark 4 thirds is definitely the way to go. Next reason is that it has dual SD card slots, and I didn't know how much I would love this until I actually got the camera. Before I got this camera, I was using the Panasonic G85, which only had one card slot. But just the fact that you have two, it just means you just plonk two SD cards in there. You don't have to really worry about running out of memory, because once it's done writing to one card, then you can write to another card, or you can use it so you can immediately back up your files, so you can save 2 copies of the same file. So for whatever reason, one of your memory cards like malfunctions, and you have a backup ready to use. Okay, so the next reason that I don't think a lot of people actually talk about is the Panasonic app. I haven't used that many camera apps, but the Panasonic, I feel like it's probably one of the best. I did try and use the Sony app, but it's like non-existent. It's like non-existent. So I have to use like some third-party equivalent. But the Panasonic app is like so easy to use. It gives you all the functionality that you need. So you can control most of your camera's settings through your phone, and it makes it so easier just like transfer images from your camera to your phone. So if you are looking just to upload them straight to your socials like Instagram or Facebook, whatever, then the Panasonic app makes it so easy to do that. This camera is capable of taking 80 megapixel photos, which makes it really good for like landscape photography. The way this works is that the camera like shifts ever so slightly, and it takes like multiple pictures and like stitches them together. So to be able to do this, you do need to have it on a tripod, and because of that, it just makes it useful for like landscape photography. You wouldn't really use it for anything else. But yeah, if you are looking to like blow your pictures up, then having that feature could be really useful for you. Also, the user interface for Panasonic, as I said, like I have a Sony RX100 and the Panasonic G9, and the Panasonic G9, the camera system is like so much easier to use than the Sony is. It's just like much more intuitive, and even just like looks nicer. It looks a bit more up to date than the Sony one does. It just looks a bit dated. But yeah, super easy to use. So if you are new to cameras or anything, then Panasonic, there's like a small learning curve. It's not as steep as it would be if you were to go for like a Sony camera. If you're interested in doing like wildlife photography or maybe sports photography, then this capable can do 20 frames a second, which is super quick. Some of your entry level DSLRs are only capable of doing like 3 to 4 frames a second. This 20 frames a second. Just think about how much action you're capturing with those 20 frames. It's incredible. One of the standout features of this camera that we all know about is image stabilization. I believe it gives you six and a half stops of image stabilization. And if you don't know what that means, then it just means that you can take photos at longer shutter speeds and it will be sharp still. And also if you're using video, then it's almost like your camera's on a gimbal when you're doing it handheld, which is very, very useful. So yeah, it's useful for both photography and for video. And then the last reason for why I should get this camera is just the price. You can pick this camera up now for around like £900 without a lens, and that is honestly like a steal. When you think about the improvements that the new firmware gave you, the functionality for photo and video, the camera is a real good like hybrid system. So if you are interested in photography, but also like want to delve a bit into videography as well, then this camera can like do it all. Obviously, if you are pretty much more like video centric, then I would say like go for the GH5. But if you want to dabble in both, then you honestly like can't go wrong with the Panasonic. So I hope that was useful. I just want to share some of my limited knowledge about cameras in general, but also about this camera. I've had this camera for like not even a year yet, but I've really enjoyed using it, and I can't see myself like looking to buy or looking to replace this camera anytime soon. I think this will like serve me well for the next like couple of years or so, I reckon. My verdict is this camera is worth buying in 2020. But as I said, I'm trying to sell you this camera. Do your research, look into it yourself, figure out if it meets your requirements and meets your needs. And that is that.